Good morning, everyone. So, today we will be looking at point of view and the different kinds of point of view. But before we move ahead, let's try to learn what the meaning of point of view is. So, basically, point of view is the perspective or view from which the narrator is telling the story. So, in simple words, it's trying to find out who is telling the story. Just remember this important thing that when we talk about point of view, we are trying to figure out who is telling the story. Before we begin learning about the different points of view, let's do a quick recap of these three important words that we will be looking at in today's video. And these words will keep coming up every now and then. So, the word author is someone who writes the story. So, someone who writes the story is called an author. A narrator is someone who tells the story. And a character is someone who acts out the story, and a character is also something or someone that is created by the author. For example, if Didi is writing a story, I will create a new character of my own, or I will choose a thing to be a character. So when the author, the writer of the story, when the author sits down to write a story, they think, hmm, who will tell the story? How much will he or she know about the characters? There are three different points of view that we will be looking at today. When an author is trying to write a story, they decide whether the story will be written in the first person point of view or whether it will be written in the second person point of view or whether it will be written in the third person point of view. We will look at what each of these mean in detail shortly. Let's look at first person point of view. Remember that the character in the story is telling you about the story. It could be the main character who's telling you about what they see, what they hear, or what they think, or it could be any other character in the story. I have written down a small paragraph from my point of view, which is the first person point of view of what I see, what I hear, and what I think. Let's read this paragraph together. Today is my first day at school. I'm so excited to meet my classmates and to make some new friends. I hope they like me. My parents had got a new job, which is why we moved to this city. On my way to the school, I saw a boy who tripped on his shoelaces and fell. I ran towards him to help him. Here, you can see in the first line that I'm talking using the words my and I, which means that I'm talking about myself, which is why it's the first person point of view. And here I'm also talking about how I'm feeling. I'm feeling excited, and I'm also thinking that my new friends should like me. And I'm also telling you that on my way to school, I saw a boy who tripped. So, here, whenever we are looking at first person point of view, what really tells you whether the character in the story is telling you about the story is when you look at the clue words, which are I, my, we, and us. So whenever you see the words like I, me, we, and us, it means that the story or the paragraph is written from the first person point of view, which means the character in the story is telling you about what they see, what they hear, and what they think. Let's look at second person point of view. In second person point of view, the narrator tells the story to another character. Let's look at an example that is given here. Merlin told Shreya, "You should have seen how fast the boy was running to reach the class. You would have seen that he really was trying not to be late." So here you can see that Merlin, who was the first person in the previous example that I gave you, is telling the story to another character called Shreya. And when she's telling the character about the events that happened or what she saw and what she heard, she is using the words you, which is a clue of how to know when it's a second person point of view. When the narrator, the person who's telling the story, tells what happened to another character, that's when it is the second person point of view. There's a little twist here. In second person point of view, the narrator who's telling the story could also be talking to the reader, which is the person who is reading the text. Here's an example of what it looks like when the narrator is talking to the reader. "You stayed up all night watching TV and now your eyes hurt and you feel extremely sleepy. This is why you should always go to bed on time." So, the narrator, the person who's telling the story, is directly talking to the person who's reading the text. The way we know that it is a second person point of view again is when the word you comes up in the text. That's when you know that it's the second person point of view. As you can see here, the clues to find out if the text is in the second person point of view is when you come across the word you and yours. Let's look at third person point of view. To say it in simple words, third person point of view is when somebody from the outside is who's not part of the story is telling you about the thoughts and actions of all the characters in the story. This person can give you all the juicy details about all the characters in the story. Here is a small paragraph. I'm going to read the paragraph and then we will look at the clues which tell us that this paragraph is written from a third person point of view. Merlin is on her way to her new school. She was so excited that she could barely sleep at night. She thought about all the new friends that she could make. She was worried that she would be late for her first day. When Merlin was near the gate, she saw someone running towards the gate. They were both late. The boy, Karan, had a green backpack and his shoelaces were undone. Just then, she saw him trip over his laces and fall down. He was trying to collect his belongings. Here you can see that the narrator, the person who's telling the story, is talking about two people who are Merlin and Karan. And the narrator, the person who's telling the story, is telling you about what the person is seeing and what the person is feeling and what are their thoughts. So here the narrator is telling us that Merlin was really excited. They're talking about Merlin, so they've used the word she. She was thinking about new friends. She was feeling worried, and Merlin saw. So, what the character was seeing. And they have also talked about Karan and what Karan was seeing, and what what happened to Karan. Here, whenever we come across the word he, she, they, them, and it, then it means that the narrator is trying to talk about all the characters in the story, and the story is written from the third person point of view. Somebody from the outside is telling you what is happening in the story. So, all you have to keep in mind is when the character is telling us what is happening, they will use the words like we, I, us, and me. And when the characters are telling us the story, it means that it is written in the first person point of view. And when the narrator is telling the story, they will use the character's name, they will use he, she, and they to talk about all the characters in the story, and the story will be written in the third person point of view. Let's do a quick recap. These are the three things that you need to keep in mind, and these are the clues that will help you to know whether the story is written from the first person point of view, the second person point of view, or the third person point of view. When the story is written from the first person point of view, the character in the story, one character in the story, will tell you what they see, what they think, and what they hear. If the story is written in the second person point of view, the narrator is telling the story to another character, or the author or the narrator is directly talking to you as a reader. And when we talk about third person point of view, the story is told by someone who is outside the story and talks about all the characters, thoughts, and actions. You already know the clues to look for. In first person, the clue that tells us that it's the first person point of view is I, we, me, us. In second person, one big clue, if the story is written from a second person point of view, is the word you. And for third person, easy way to find out if the story is written in third person is to look for the words he, she, it, and they.